What's up guys, welcome to the garage, end of the week, and we are working on the G-Wagon here, OM606 swap. It's a 300D 1998 WAGs, W463 I think is the base code. Pretty straightforward. We're going to pull the motor out.
Perfect.
So it's a big old OM606 swap. This thing makes 1200 Newton meters of torque, about 400 odd horsepower, custom swapped. This is not the factory engine. It makes considerably more power than the factory engine, and it doesn't need new rings, but we're gonna do new piston rings, new valve stem seals, and just give it a freshen up, just for peace of mind. It is pushing a little bit of blow by, so we're just gonna rectify that issue. So I'm going to break this into multiple small videos in regards to OM606 swaps, and specifically obviously the G-Wagon, but I feel like it's going to pertain to pretty much anything because these diesels are very simple. Air, fuel, boom, away you go. This one has a trans controller, I think a 7226 automatic transmission with that trans controller. Not too sure what the ECU is, so we'll dive into that, see what exactly is needed to do the swap, because I'm interested in doing one myself in the future. This has a big HX35 turb ski on it, as you can see here. This guy is pretty sizable, makes a lot of power, makes a lot of burst, a lot of good noises and stuff. Yeah, dogs. Yeah, so first, I guess, is why would you own 606 swap? It's a fairly compact motor. If you look at the size, it is on a good lean angle. Intake manifold's pretty big. But you can pick these up in a whole freaking car very cheaply. Like for a few $1,000s, you get everything you needed. Bigger turbo, you could run a bigger pump, and you can already push, you know, quite easily 250 horse and bump up the Newton meters very easily. Diesel swaps are just sick. They sound good, pump some soot, you know. And being a 98, being an old girl like this, it is a very affordable swap that's still going to make good power, and there's a huge following. This is basically a diesel to JZ. These things are actually really popular, the OM606, so that's why I took this on. Very interested in it. I wouldn't mind getting a Mercedes diesel myself. Turbo, V6, straight 6, not too fast, but I do want to play around with the diesel kind of tuning scene, I guess. So again, why would you swap in an OM606? Aside from the cost, readily available. The tuning scene is like, it is pretty well sorted with these things. There's lots of people that do it, so you're supported. Lots of forums, lots of swaps in a huge range of vehicles, not just Mercedes, but all different sorts of things. You see them like in Russia and stuff, going into drift cars. You see them in hill climb cars. You just see them in trucks and things like this, repowered utes. It is just a good, easy kind of situ if you want a good solid 3-liter straight 6 turbo diesel. Very stout. So my first step in this whole rebuild process, new to diesels, I know the fuel rail contains a whole butt ton of fuel pressure, so probably gonna have to crack that off a little bit later. But to make the start for us is pulling this big turb ski. So I'm gonna make a start on this because the exhaust manifold, this little guy down in there, I don't know if you can see it, I can see it. We're going to pull this off. That's going off for powder coating and probably the exhaust too. I'm actually currently sitting on a stand to get high enough up there. So turb ski needs to come off to go and be powder coated. So some heat management there. Under here. This is our exhaust. So how beefy is that? That's pretty cool. So off the back of the turbo up here, runs down and out. It looks like a V-band up here. Yeah, sick. Quick release V-band at that. See the little clasp on the top. Looks like we have an exhaust leak up there, so I might have to remedy that. Exhaust seems pretty easy to take off because we get on the floor here. That's all it is. Exhaust tip runs through. There is a muffler. There is a flex, and that's actually it. So we'll probably start from the back and remove the hangers, drop this down, pull these sections off, and move our way back up to the top. On the other side of the turbo, in this beautiful swap here, we have a little air box. So this guy looks like it's completely sealed off too. So provided this guy stays above water, I would say that's kind of like your air intake limit for getting this guy four-wheel driving, I guess. You get up to that point and then it's going to kind of submerge this guy and fill it with water. But I mean, it's a pretty high vehicle, so that's pretty decent. So we'll have to take this intake off. Oil lines to the top, oil lines underneath. We have a EGT, or an exhaust gas temperature probe, at the back here, which is mandatory for tuning diesels with decent power. Doesn't look like we're going to have to do too much fiddling around here. Air into the turbo, air out of the turbo. So we've got the intercooler pipe down there. We'll have to take that off. We have the oil drain up the top, which is quite nice. Means I can get to that quite easily. That's just snuck in there. Turbo blanket should unclip pretty easy and doesn't look too crazy. But yeah, let's get this thing off. Looking at the intake side on this is going to be a bit more complicated. It's quite DIY, very DIY. We've got multiple couplers. I'm just doing a refresh, but I got the itch to fabricate some new stuff for this, just to clean it up, simplify it. It would make it more responsive, a lot cleaner, aesthetically pleasing. But let's not digress. Let's just crack at this. Gonna make a start and let's get it. Now, I'm up under the car. Looks like this whole thing is actually just held on by this V-band, so very simple exhaust. Now we're going up under the wheel well here. I showed you before. Looks like we got this little plate that they've kind of screwed in with some generic mismatched screws. So what we're going to do here is see what we have and maybe drill them out and chuck some nutserts in there when we reinstall it. Beautiful. Back up the top, we need to make some room, so we're going to get rid of this, and some heat shielding. Probably take this off, pull it to the side as well, and we'll get rid of the wastegate plumbing too. Now, I can't seem to get in here very well, just to get this turbo beanie off, but what I'm looking at down in here, which, I better start this, so just going to flat into that. Yeah. So if you look in there, the turbo manifold bolts are hex screws. So that basically means we're gonna have to take this casing not the casing, the front housing off. Oil drain, front housing, you can see everything else is removed, the intake and all of this, so it's pretty straightforward, pretty simple. We'll take this housing off, we'll assess these bolts here. We'll probably have to take these bolts off and pull the core out, and that will give us better access, I'm hoping, to the manifold bolts down there, but we might be able to just leave the housing on the manifold and get to our little nuts and bolts down in here. As you can see, the little brass boys. That's probably enough access in all honesty, and we can get back here, a bit of a stretch. Once we pull this downpipe off, you can see we've got the EGT probe out of there. That's going to be some itchy stuff there. That's always lovely. Yeah, not too crazy really. Very easy access given that, you know, it's a big old turbski sitting on top of the motor. So I'll pull this front housing off and we'll start working on these back bolts and the downpipe. These whole sets run a big old circuity boy, and hopefully it doesn't ping off around the garage or take my eye out. Oop, well, let's not take you out either. Oh yeah, come on. Well. We got stuff off to the side. Anyway, turbo drain, turbo beanie, dump pipe is off, but we got some space constraints here. We got wastegate down the bottom. We should have, down there, that other actuator, so wastegate actuator. And one down there is a quick spool actuator, so that cuts off. It's a twin scroll turbski, cuts off one bank, allows it to spool quicker, low down torque. I would say that probably isn't plumbed right, or there is a vacuum leak or something, because it takes a solid minute for it to come on boost. But we'll have a look at that. Let me get in there, and these are the bolts, the Allen bolts here. The hex heads, I want to get them off, but Pollock of a place, so we might have to take this front housing off. And ooh, that's not good. Big old crack in this manifold. Might have to cut it and weld it, but it's not leaking through, so that's good, or else you'd have a very sooty engine bay. I'm wondering if I can get to these bolts on the manifold, perhaps without pulling apart this turbo. Oh, but there is a lot of space. I was worried about the bolt at the bottom there for this housing. These ones just look like a little bit of a Pollock to get to, but I actually think we might be able to get them. So I'm going to try that first. That gives us more room and access, at least less chance of damaging the housing, well not the housing, the core, the turbo core. This guy, you don't want to drop anything or break it or bend fins and whatnot. So yeah, crack at that. Now we got the center cartridge out of this guy. We'll get our torch and show you. The main reason that we're pulling this guy apart is you can see all that fuel and oil just kind of sitting in the bottom of this guy. That is no good. That is definitely not good. It's all through the exhaust, so we're gonna have to let that soak in some diesel. Pull it all out. Yeah, so new rings, freshen up the head, all of that kind of stuff, because that's pretty gank. We have a look here. You can see it all on the front inducer side. And this was actually, I just spent a little bit of time and some heat. The turbo was actually somewhat seized, not completely seized, but it is very caked. So when I went to spin it by hand, but when I first initially pulled this guy out, it wouldn't actually spin. It was coked up. So that's old oil. You can see the excessive amount of buildup on the back side of this was actually kind of, you know, yeah, not great. So yeah, that's our reasoning for tearing into this and really freshening everything up. Alright, so there's 2 Allen bolts here, and there's 2 nuts on the back of this housing. I can't quite get that back nut loose, so we're going to try and get this manifold off through here by just removing it in the bay. Failing that, it's bloody hot and bloody tired. We're just going to have to pull the whole freaking motor out to get the manifold, which isn't a bad thing. It does need to come out anyway, but I wanted to give myself more space in there to kind of fiddle around and drag this thing out without scratching too many things up, you know. But it's going to be a mission, so I'm going to try next hour just cracking all these lovely copper bolts, copper nuts off, sorry, and see how we go. I got the looks like a heater hose line off, so we've got plenty of access along the top, but the bottom might be a mission. I have to do the double spanner trick on some of them, do some black magic. Let's well, let's have at it. Let's just try to get her off. Quite some time, no, it hasn't actually been that long, but sometime later, looks like this guy's ready to come off. I think I've gotten all the bolts. Feel like I have. She's still pretty on there though. You're off. There's one sneaky boy down the back there. Yeah, I reckon that's off. We just got to wiggle it. I dare say that these studs are very, very tightly drilled. Yeah, looks like it, which is a good thing. Means that the flanges are somewhat accurate. So I guess. My hands, diesel life. Jesus. What? Anyway, let's try and pull this bad boy off. Let's see you guys up there. Right back on. So this is what the go is. All of this that goes to the quick spool flap on the manifold itself there. This guy obviously actuates under boost. Oh, there's so much oil in there. Woo. But it's hooked on that fantastic catch cam line. So pull you off. To ensure we don't forget where it goes, because that stuff happens. We'll pull it off. And run it all the way back. Put it back on. I'm going to go over all of these lines again, try and reroute them, rerun them, make it all a bit more efficient, cleaner, smoother. Hopefully finish it up a bit. Rock bit of titty. Yeah, we got a whole lot of space in there. A whole lot of diesely goodness all over the shop. It's a big old iron block, you can see. Still pretty clean down there. It needs a It's a good lick of degreaser, really clean it up, you can see. But we'll get that when the engine's out. And now I've got easy access to the side here. There's the engine mount, maybe the trans. I might be able to whip the trans off and pull the block, but I'll probably pull the trans and the block at the same time. And you need to remove the whole front in which to do that. I don't want to mess around too much. I don't want to take this intake manifold off with it still being in the car. I think what I'll do is I'll try and disconnect as much as possible, and we'll pull it as is, straight up and out. We'll drop the belts, radiator, intercooler, all the hoses that run to it. The AC pump will drop off the side. That'll let us get down in there, same as that side there is the engine mount, and that should allow us to pull it out. It's pretty simple. We do have a lot more room to play with this turbo side out. That's definitely the easier kind of portion to remove to give yourself that kind of room, because we do need to rock it and move it just to wriggle it out. Pulling the front should be pretty straightforward. Everything seems easy. Got my dirty mitts on freaking everything. I don't know how you wouldn't, but anyway, that's our hot side off, which is good. That can go off for powder coating and all of that kind of goodness. Looks like we got some broken brackets down there, but not what we're dealing with right now. Right now, let's have a look at this. So there you go. Got a quick spool and everything. A valve down here, so that helps spool come up a little bit earlier. We got hole set rear. You can see it needs a clean, so we're gonna have to give this a good bath. Manifold ports don't look too bad. They're very caked, but it is a diesel, so we need to clean that, clean the exhaust, have this all powder coated, ceramic coated, so it's all nice and, you know, oh yuck. Yeah, that's a heavy coating. And we're going to rebuild this turbo as well. We might be able to get a lighter rear wheel, but being a diesel, it runs quite a lot of heat, so I'm not too sure about that. Maybe just a billet front wheel, a little bit more efficiency in the same housing size. Who knows? We'll have a look. Definitely a rebuild kit, but yeah, that's that for the hot side of the OM606 diesel 3-litre big turbocharger. I guess this is the engine pull next. Yeah, I don't know, I guess.